I was Jeb, I wouldn't say Marco's a good friend of mine. Marco did something that he wasn't supposed to do. He ran. I've never said this before. And I watch these two guys, and they're hugging, and they're kissing, and they're holding each other. Very much like, actually, Chris Christie did with the president.
Donald Trump pulling no punches, taking on Jeb Bush, Marco Rubio, and Chris Christie during yesterday's rally in Iowa. Let's continue now with Newsmax Prime. Michael Reagan remains with us. He's joining us via telephone from Los Angeles. And from Newsmax New York, former political advisor to Donald Trump, Roger Stone. This whole thing, Michael, you were upset at Trump last week. Said, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you were concerned about him using your dad as an example in a way that you thought was inaccurate. But it seems as if Donald Trump can say whatever he wants to, and there's no problem for him.
Yeah, that was last week. This is this week with Donald Trump. I mean, he's a roadshow. You know, my op-ed piece last week, I in fact referred to him as the Music Man from the great movie with the 76 trombones and what have you. What Donald Trump is doing is basically saying what every person who listens to cable television, every person who listens to talk radio says every day when they're screaming at their radios, screaming at their television set. He's saying what all of us are in fact thinking when he's doing it. So when he's kicking Ramos out of the room, we're all kicking Ramos out of the room. We're all saying, kick him out of the room. And he kicks him out of the room. And Trump is smart enough to tap into that. Now, my argument is, okay, you've tapped into that side of it, but are you really going to be able to accomplish as president of the United States what you say you in fact want to do?
Roger, it appears that Donald not only has a gift for showmanship, but for invective. That stream of consciousness line took on Jeb, Marco, and Chris Christie in one quick line. Are these kind of attacks, are they going to wear thin, or will this just be part of his everyman appeal?
Well, first let me amplify what my old friend Michael Reagan just put his finger on, which is that Trump is tapping into a voter-wide revulsion with career politicians. Chris Christie, Jeb Bush, Marco Rubio, they're all interchangeable, really. They all have been gorging on special interest money. They're all reliant on the lobbyists and the special interests. They're all in bed with the elite media. And Trump, I think, is a breath of fresh air. Like Reagan, he's an outsider. Like Ronald Reagan, he's a larger-than-life figure. Look, there is no greater president in my lifetime than Ronald Reagan. But in Trump, I see the same traces of independence and blunt speaking and a real love of the people. Trump is having the time of his life. He enjoys campaigning. Compare that to Jeb, who looks like he's going through the motions rather annoyed.
And Trump has to be happy with the numbers. South Carolina, he leads substantially there, and the Palmetto State is the latest state to try and rule out any third-party bid for Trump. The state says he cannot appear on the South Carolina primary ballot unless he pledges to support the Republican nominee in the general election. Michael, South Carolina and other states going to be successful trying to tie Trump's hands?
Oh, I don't know if they'll really be successful at all. But again, simply by doing it, you're talking about who? Donald Trump. The only person who's mentioning there's other candidates, in fact, who would like to become the nominee of the party is Donald Trump. He mentions their names on a regular basis. No other news organization is mentioning Jeb Bush or mentioning all the others that are out there. You have the governor of Texas, who's actually accomplished much of what Donald Trump has in fact said he wants to do. But the governor of Texas gets no airtime because Trump is sucking all the air out of the room. And these guys, if they want to get on top, they need to find a way to fill the balloon.
And of course, we should note Rick Perry took on Donald Trump, and it didn't seem to work. And there is the Donald continuing to go after his Republican counterparts. For example, he went after Jeb Bush concerning the use of his last name or the lack thereof. Let's take a listen to what he had to say, and then we'll get your reaction afterwards.
You notice Jeb never uses his last name? Why? Because he's ashamed of it.
Well, Roger, you hear that. You mentioned how it seemed like Jeb was going through the motions. While the press has picked up to a certain degree on a Trump versus Bush dynamic, is there a situation where Donald, given his momentum, has Jeb in his sights, and the guy people thought was going to be the front runner may have to retire early to Florida, or will Jeb have staying power?
Well, look, at no time during the 8 years that Jeb is governor and his brother George W. is president does Jeb disagree with any policy. The wild spending, Medicare Part D, the war that had no point, the erosion of our civil liberties, Jeb never says a word. Now he surrounds himself with his daddy's and his brother's advisors, and he says, I'm my own man. Look, the guy's been an influence peddler. He's been a de facto lobbyist. 5 of his partners in various business enterprises are in prison. His record is, in fact, thin. And any vote that falls off of Donald Trump is not going to Jeb Bush anyway. I think Trump put his finger on this. Jeb has no energy. He has no passion. He looks like he's waiting around to be anointed, as if he's saying, Father, Father, tell them it's my turn to be king. So I don't see him ending this race as a contender. He should be more worried about John Kasich crawling up his back than Donald Trump, who he's not even in hailing distance of in the polls.
All right, we will have to leave it there. Roger Stone from Newsmax New York, we thank you. And Michael Reagan via phone from L.A. You can get to Michael at Reagan World on Twitter. Thanks very much. Well, you heard their comments. Do you want to weigh in? We'd love to hear from you. Send your comments to newsmaxtv.com/comments, and we'll be right back.